of the markets.
Now, many of you are watching markets this morning worried about the continued volatility from last week. While I don't want to opine on the future direction of markets, I will say that relative to other countries, India is in a good position with strengthening growth, a low current account deficit, a narrowing fiscal deficit, moderating inflation, low short-term foreign currency liabilities, and very sizable exchange reserves relative to imports or liabilities. So we have approximately $380 billion in reserves to be used as and when the need arises.
So let's understand this better. We are joined in our studios by our correspondent Sidhant. Sibal is now joining us at the moment. Thanks Sidhant for joining us. Sensex is down by more than 1,000 points. How are we looking at the situation, and how is devaluation of yuan, what we have seen in the yuan currency, the devaluation, and if need arises, the further devaluation that we may see, how do you see that impacting global markets?
Well, let's first talk about today's fall in the Indian markets. Well, we saw that big crash and sad day for the investors, but when there is a fall, there's always an opportunity to buy more stocks and go for the stocks you have always been wanting to. But today's crash in the markets is made in China crisis because for a long time we have seen markets in China. The Shanghai markets has been falling for last 2 to 3 weeks. There has been a kind of a carnage happening in the Chinese markets, and we are living in a globalized world where everything happens in any part of the world impacts us clearly. And when it concerns the world's second largest economy, that's China, it obviously will impact us here in India. And what's happening in the Chinese market and economy is basically the fact that the Chinese growth is expected to fall. The government has put a target of 7%, and of course there are fears that government might not able to catch up with that target for this financial year, primarily because of the fact that the global economy is contracting, and Chinese economy basically is export-driven economy. For last 2 decades, the growth basically primarily has hinged upon export-driven growth. Meanwhile, here in India, we have a consumption-based economy, so we don't have to fear here in India. And India right now is at a sweet spot, clearly, because we look at the global economy. This American, job growth is not that much. We know about the Eurozone crisis, Greece not doing so well, and of course now China comes in, the second largest economy, not doing so well. So of course there will be ripples, ripple effect here in India also. Talking about the Chinese devaluation, well, let me give you the background in a sense. Chinese currency yuan is linked to a group of currency, a basket of currency, and it's like fixed rate. It does not move on a daily basis. But what the Chinese government did recently, almost 2 weeks back, is the fact that it devaluated the Chinese currency yuan, and of course that the fear is the fact that it might start a competitive currency devaluation across the region. And if you have a weak currency, it affects your exports. Your export is much cheaper, and the cheap export is expected to give a boost to the Chinese economy, but it might not able to do in this current condition because the world economy is not doing so well.
All right, Sidhant, India is a bright spot in the global economy, and like you said, whatever happens in the global scenario does impact each other economies as well. But the RBI governor has expressed confidence, and he said that India is better off than among emerging market economies. The macroeconomic problems are very much under control.
Let me go in the past. It was the year 2013, I believe, 4th of September, when Raghuram Rajan took charge as the governor of RBI, and that day in his first press conference he said that we want to make a bulletproof balance sheet of the economy. And in past 1 year he has been able to make sure that the economy's balance sheet is bulletproof and it can withstand the global turmoil. In a sense, there are two key situations which the world is watching, and India of course is watching, is the fact that whether the Americans, the Federal Reserve in America, will go for a rate hike, which is an easy monetary policy, and the second is of course the Chinese economic concern, whether the economy of China will come at a 7% growth rate in this financial year. So these are the two concerns, and of course India will be able to withstand most of it, because we right now here in India have are in a better situation, and
Right.
the good point about in a sense an opportunity for Indians is the fact that if the Chinese economy does not grow at a pace of 7%, for the first time in history, India's economy will be growing much higher than the Chinese economy. So there's an opportunity there.
All right, Sidhant, Sibal, thanks very much for being with us and sharing your perspective with us.